Welcome to the CC&A Insurance podcast. I am your host, Laura Aliphon, and in each episode we sit down with our experts to simplify the world of insurance and risk management. Our goal is to provide you with the practical information you need to protect what matters most to you. Today we are diving into the topic of why claims get rejected and how to avoid it. Joining me is Joanne. She is our Claims Manager.
For my sins.
And she'll be touching on a few topics regarding claims and how you can avoid it. So welcome, Jo.
Thanks, Laura.
So I'd like to just start out by chatting around the topic of non-disclosure. How does that impact our claims?
So non-disclosure, we have had a few rejections with regards to non-disclosure. Basically, when you're taking out an insurance policy or when you are updating anything, you need to disclose very important information, because it does give grounds for rejecting claims if you haven't disclosed something that's material to your policy, which means that if it affects your policy or it affects your premium, you need to disclose it. So some of the new ones that are coming through what you need to disclose is like your solar systems. Most insurers insure the solar system separately. They charge a premium. There has to be certificates of compliance and all those kind of things. If it is not noted on the schedule, you do stand a chance of it being rejected if you do submit a claim. Another one that is a very pertinent fact is you must disclose your claims history. When taking out a new policy, you must disclose every single claim that you have submitted in the designated period of time that they ask for. That is also grounds for a rejection. So if you haven't disclosed a claim and they find out about it, they can actually reject your claim based on non-disclosure. You've also just got to be very careful with disclosure, because with today's technology, information is so readily available. I mean, our phones track us, our tracking devices on our cars give information like harsh braking, speeding, all sorts of data. Even we had a claim where the client was not very forthcoming with information, and the insurance company couldn't get the tracking report. They wouldn't hand over the tracking report. And what the insurance company actually did was went and got the data off the car, because most of our cars these days are computerized. Yes. So, you have data stored in the car's computer. So they just do, what do they call it? A diagnostics, and this information comes out. We've actually had two claims. One was rejected. Actually, both were rejected because of what diagnostics the car held. So you must disclose all material facts from an underwriting perspective when you're taking out cover or updating cover, as well as for your claims. Mm-hmm. If you don't disclose facts, insurers do have grounds for rejection. It does state it in your policy wording. Non-disclosure is a big no-no.
And when you refer to claims history and speaking on a period of time and potential rejection for not disclosing has certain history.
Yes.
If you, for example, didn't give history on a vehicle claim, could they reject a household contents claim, but you haven't disclosed a motor claim?
So usually they will. It depends on the insurer, but they will look at whether it is material to whether it would have affected their decision. So one of the ones we had where the claim was actually rejected because claims history wasn't disclosed, was because there was a pattern of the same sort of claim being submitted. So this person would cancel the policy, then go to another insurer, submit another claim, very similar type of claim from the similar type of section. But from your question saying a household contents claim and a motor claim, if it's one claim, I don't think they would reject your claim, and we could probably argue to assist. It would have to be material to how they underwrote your policy. So that is one of the questions the insurance company actually asked us and said, okay, if he had disclosed his claims, what would you have done differently? And we would have actually had to refer that specific one to them, and they wouldn't have taken on the business. So then they rejected it.
So it's just nice to know, because if you if you forget
Yes.
a simple incident, or it actually was covered by a third party or something like that.
Yes.
Sometimes you can, in error, do that. So it's not blanketed.
No.
But obviously it is vital to disclose full history. But
yeah, because that would affect your premium, it would affect your terms and conditions, and it would affect your excesses. But obviously, if you've forgotten one claim, I mean, everybody's human, everybody forgets something. We can still argue that for you, and especially if it's not material to the claim that you're submitting now. But yeah, see, also the thing is that insurance companies now have access to some form of database, and they actually got a whole string of claims histories that dates back way far further than what they usually ask for.
So it should be readily available.
Yes.
So it is important to just be honest anyway and try and remember everything possible.
Well, I think what you can do is, and generally is, whoever you've been insured with previously will have a claims history. So just ask them to send you that printout. Because as you're saying, you may forget a third-party claim that you never submitted through your own insurer, but that will have the list of all your claims registered and what was paid.
So, Jo, with regards to incorrect documentation, how's that had an impact on our clients and their claims being rejected?
Okay, so with regards to documentation, it's not always incorrect documentation, it's the lack of it. For example, you need to have valuations of your jewelry. You need to be able to show a proof of ownership. And insurers have become more strict on this recently. So you need to have some form of proof of ownership of items. I know, and we all understand that if you kept boxes and receipts of everything in your home, you're going to look like you need to be on a episode of Hoarders. But you need to have a way of storing this. And our suggestion would be is to open an electronic folder. Whenever you're buying new items for your home, take a photo of the receipt or the invoice. Take a photo of the box if it comes in a box. Take a photo of the item. And they will have the date stamp, especially if you're taking it on your cell phone. It'll have a date stamp, a time and a date of when you've actually taken it. And store it in that folder. Because we're finding that insurers are asking for proof of ownership more and more. It also safeguards you, because if you buy, especially on electronics, there's so many different specs of laptops and iPads and cell phones. If you've got the proof, then you will get replaced with what you had, because that's the basis of insurance, is to replace like for like. It's to put you in the same position you were prior to the loss, basically. Yes. So you need to have the documentation of what specs you had, because what often happens is if you don't have proof of that item or the specs, what they will do is they will settle you for an entry-level device, which is not always what you had. I mean, if you've got the top of the range and you can't prove it, there can be a vast difference in value. So that is very important as well. Also things like jewelry and artworks, there's no documented value of those items. They need to know grams of gold, size of diamonds, carats of diamonds. Your artworks with your paintings and that, you need to get those valuated regularly. When they say regularly, they usually mean every 2 to 3 years, to ensure that you are going to be replaced fairly and with a like-for-like settlement.
So would it be a good idea for a client, when they purchase an item, specified or not, just to send the invoice on or send the picture on to your broker, and just know that should it come to claim time, the broker can always refer back to that invoice, to that picture of the item.
Yes, for sure. So we can save it on their behalf, or they can just keep it in a folder, or they can do both, because it safeguards them.
Yes.
They can have a copy and we can have a copy. So, because you never know what happens. But at least you've got that all documented. If you've got stuff in your home that you've had for 20 years, then take a photo of and date stamp it, because, like your lounge suite, you may not have the invoice anymore, but at least you can sort of see what it was like, what condition it was in, all those kind of things, so that when it comes to replacement, you can get a like for like.
Yeah, and it is date stamped
prior to the loss.
Few months, few years prior to the loss.
Yes. So they know that you did have that item, because that's really what they're wanting to know, is they don't want you claiming for something that you technically did not have. Or an upgrading an item.
Okay, Joe, so the clients who are going to be sending through proof of items, invoices, pictures, whatever form of evidence to the items that they own, should they need it for claim stage, what value are we talking? Because obviously we don't want every inch, every aspect, every item that somebody owns. So what would be the sort of starting point?
So starting point would definitely be your high valued items, like your electronics. We would need to know the specs of the electronics. Jewelry items, artwork, so those are high-end, high-valued items. Electronics change so much. They either come up and then they go down. So we definitely need the specs of those. So they may be higher value when you buy them, and it's cheaper when you have a claim, or a lesser value when you have a claim. But we rather just have the specs to make sure that you get items replaced properly. So I would say, we don't need to know the smaller things. Like, we don't need to know about your Calvin Klein underpants. But maybe, like, I would say 10,000 Rand and above, or jewelry items, definitely, even if it is only 5,000 Rand. It depends on the item.
Be a good...
Yeah, I think 5,000 Rand would be a good starting point. If you've got a lot of designer clothes and that, I would document those too. Because, at that stage, we've got some clients with some very expensive handbags. Those kind of things I would definitely document. But your normal run-of-the-mill Fashini's top, or Kingsmead shoes, those you don't really have to worry about. It's the more valuable things, like running shoes are very expensive. Those kind of things I would definitely document.
Okay. And do you have any examples for us on some horror claim stories?
So, we have quite a few horror claims. I think the ones that, depending on what you want to say about what you mean about horror, but I think the ones that are the most awful for us to deal with are the ones where people are involved and people are hurt, which is generally your motor section, other than armed robberies. We have had 2 claims in those horrible April floods where 2 people died. One, their house slid down the hill and landed on them, and they were pretty much buried in mud, which was actually quite traumatic. And another one in those floods as well, where he was sleeping and the wall of the house just fell on him and killed him. So it was, it's quite horrific. And you're dealing with a family that's distraught. So that was very traumatic for us. Also horrible stories like hijackings. We had an incident in Joburg where this poor driver was at a stop street. These guys jumped out, put a gun to his head, dragged him out, tied him up, robbed him of his valuables, threw him in another car, blindfolded him, drove around with him for hours. They even actually took him into a tavern and put him on the floor while they were drinking. And then at night time put him back in the car and drove him to a township that he wasn't sure where he was, and threw him out the car. And he had to walk with no shoes to try and find someone to help him to phone to get to safety. That poor chap was very traumatized. It was not a nice experience at all.
With the gentleman that was hijacked and taken by these guys, what was the outcome for him? How were we able to assist him, and what was his step-by-step process through this all?
So when he found somebody to with a phone that he could get himself to safety, he contacted his boss, who immediately told the tracking company that the car had been stolen. They called us, and we got the ball rolling with the investigator. On a lot of insurance policies, not on the business side, but on the domestic, they do have trauma counseling for up to a limit for people that have had these kind of experiences. So at least that assists people with the trauma of going through what he went through. And we that car was never recovered. If I remember, they actually found the tracking device on the road somewhere. But because he had the insurance, we were able to settle the finance for him, and whatever was left over went back, obviously was settled to him, so that he could obviously replace that delivery van and continue his business.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'd just like to thank you for being with us today. Thank you for all your expertise on claims and for just giving our viewers some some valuable information. So that brings us to the end of today's conversation. It certainly makes a complex topic feel much more manageable. So thank you, Jo.
Thank you.
For those listening at home or at the office, we hope you found this discussion valuable. If you have any questions about the topics we've covered today, or if you'd like to review your own insurance policy, you can reach out to the team at CC&A Insurance Brokers, and there will be a link either at the top or the bottom of this video, and you can get in touch with us. You can also find resources and past episodes on our social media channels. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.